So, Dusty,
Yes, sir.
here we are.
We love to tell
This is a special episode,
Oh my goodness.
and I'm going to give you the great honor of introducing our guest today.
I absolutely would love that. You know, as I pulled in the parking garage today, I walked around the corner and you see that we're at the new the Museum of Christian and Gospel Music that here in Nashville, the GMA, they've been working on it for years, and all of a sudden you walk around the corner of one of the busiest parts of Nashville, and there it is. And I thought, we're doing this with an incredible man who has been so instrumental in helping this come to be, and we get to be with him today, Stephen Gilreath. And I'm telling you what, I am so excited. I'm pumped because we've spent so many years in this business. And to know that we get to talk to a guy that helped make this become a reality.
And the thing with Dusty, you never know when he's excited. It's just
I
just hangs up there.
thought about that as I was driving over here. I thought, this still moves me. This music still moves me.
So, welcome. You like to be called Steve or Steven?
Steve is fine, and whenever my dear personal friends Danny and Don called me, I said I need to come and do this podcast and hang out with you guys. I'm just kidding you. I'm just messing.
You got that, don't you, Danny and Don?
Yeah, Danny and Don.
Wait, hey,
no,
I'm so nervous. You can call me anything you want today, and I wouldn't know the difference.
That's exactly right. We both were really. I loved our text conversation last night and said how nervous we both were, and We've interviewed a lot of people the last 2 years, but this really was.
Oh my
I was
goodness,
nervous too.
that could not be true.
No, it really was.
But part of it is because I've been in the business as long as Dusty, which is close to 50 years.
That's exactly right.
And I've seen your name
Yep.
for about, 35 of those, maybe?
I don't know what you've been reading, but it's been out there, so sure.
Yeah, I won't go where I found them,
Yeah.
but you've always been in places of influence and impact. And when I heard that you were the one putting the museum together, it was like, of course. And so we're going to peel that back a little bit. But every time I have ever seen your name, it's been in a place of influence. It's been in a place of impact. And when Dusty and I started this podcast, in my mind, it started when I walked through the SGMA Museum, and I realized that there's something unique in our generation that we're still young enough to be connected to the people who began this industry and old enough to appreciate the story that led us here. So we feel like with this podcast, we are caretakers of the story to a certain extent, and you set the bar pretty high, so we're honored to have you here.
That's humbling. Thank you for that. I tell you, it took me a long time to get here, and I've been fortunate to have worked with a lot of great people, as have y'all. And I look back on my body of work, probably like you did, and I think, wow, there's some amazing things that I've been a part of, and there's some really horrible moments too that
you hope nobody knows.
That you hope we all forget, but all of those are instructional. They all were part of making, me what I am today, and they all got us a little farther down the road and have great stories to tell. And just thankful I'm here. This museum, it took me 67 years to get here. That's how I look at it. And it took everything I know how to do to get to a spot where I could put together a museum. And when the GMA first talked to me about it, I thought, what a great way that would be to end a career. And then I thought, boy, this may end my career because it was so much work.
Let me correct you on one thing.
What's that?
I think we're all the exact same age, so I don't want to hear you talk about ending your career yet
because we're not ending ours.
We're just getting started. And
well, what I think is so great is Stephen, when we come in here, and we'll talk about that, Stephen, he produced the Dove Awards for years and years and years.
Come on now, ease up.
And so his life has touched all genres of music, which I love, because you and I both, our lives have touched all genres of music. And you walk in here and you feel that. You feel that. And Steve was always very fair to all the different artists that he has produced, and with Jackie and with all the different people. So it's pretty cool, I think.
Yeah, there's so much in that statement you just said. And by the way, let me give you a reference where we are. Yeah. We're in our cafe the Cantina's Arts Cafe, right up in the front of the museum. We have an opening out to the street, so there's a street cafe. You'll hear the noise of the city going by. You hear a beautiful coffee bar here by Just Love. Chris is over there making drinks. So all those sounds are not coming out of Dusty's stomach. These are all
not yet.
These are all from the coffee bar. Not yet. That's right. So I want to give your audience a reference here. I am used to, because of producing years and years and years, you said, of the Dove Awards, 10 years, that there are so many great artists and great arts in our industry that it's weird to say they should be honored. I don't know if honored is the right word, but
I love that word.
We want to say, good and faithful servant for people that can hold a platform together for years and years. And yet there's limited time in a show like the Dove Awards, limited stage time, and I have said no a lot more than I've said yes to people as far as performing and putting together collaborations and all that. So it's always difficult to put together that, and always comes up short, even with my friends in town. We've been here 35 years. So we have to say no more than yes.
I'm sure you do.
And the museum was exactly like that. There's 1,000 artists that ought to be honored in here.
Great.
And so far, we've squeezed a few hundred of them in here, and it's been really great and honoring. And there's a few hundred more that aren't. So
well, we are grateful you said yes today. So what years did you do the Dove Awards?
I always forget the exact years, but it was around 2002, I think, to 2010. And it could be 2001, but in there. So, and those correspond with, coming out of the 90s, there's a big boom in CCM. So we were, two of my first years producing were at Bridgestone Arena. And then our biggest year actually was at Municipal Auditorium, because the Predators got into the playoffs for the first time. And whoever thought that would happen, none of us did. And that changed the timing of the Dove Awards in the arena. We couldn't be there anymore and have the production time we needed. And
I remember who I sat by at that. Delilah.
Oh, no kidding.
Host.
She was on our show.
And for some reason, I ended up sitting right by her.
It's good you weren't behind her. She's 8.5 feet tall.
That's exactly right.
I'm rounding up. So,
my first year at the Doves
she is tall.
Was, I think, 78. And it was right before they decided to take a year off. I think it was a year before that.
I was so young back then.
And it was at the
high school.
The hotel right a few blocks from here. That's the Sheraton now. It used to be the Hyatt Regency. And it was on the second floor, and you ride the elevator up, and there were a few hundred of us there. And I just remember thinking, I moved here to be a part of this. And we were, again, assuming we're all about the same age, I think 69 was the very first year of the Dove Awards. And we were all 10 or 11 years old, and now here we get to sit and help tell the story. That's a big deal.
It is a big deal.
And I want to insert this just in case you record any of it. Because of who your audience is, 69 was the first year. There have been 56 years of Dove Awards. I've assembled all of the masters, and you can see pieces in the Dove Award Theater here. But we're missing 5 years of Dove Awards, which is tragic for the GMA.
Wow.
And they are most of them are in the 70s. Somebody out there, a couple of them weren't on, most of those weren't on TV, but somebody probably had a VHS camera set up. Probably at a soundboard, and it may have record numbers on the bottom and all that. Any of that. Anybody who has the late 70s on a home video or something, I'd love to have them. So.
There was one event I think I've told you about that happened the first year I was there that I don't think you want footage of it, but it was a great memory. And you know what? Just the fact that you. That's been going on that many years, and you've narrowed it down to, hey, we're missing a couple of years, but gosh, look at the years that you got.
Well, sorry, I talk a lot.
No, I want to say one thing.
No, but I have something more important to say. No, I'm just kidding.
You are very important. Go ahead. It just hit me because we always talk about, he talks about the Spears because that's where he got his start. I talk about the Rambos. It just hit me. One of the first Dove Awards. I'm not going to make this long. Brock Spear presented an award to Dottie at one of the first awards, and they went up together.
Wow.
I just remember seeing a picture of it.
Wow.
So that was pretty cool. Made me think of it because I see the spears right here on his glass.
This is actually a cue card for you right here, all the names.
Let me think. Who else can I? Karen will be happy. She's up at the top.
Yeah.
So when you get a call, okay, we're going to talk about the museum in a little bit, but you've had one mountain after another that you could say, my bio is this one event, and it's still pretty impressive. You've done the stuff at the White House.
Yeah.
You did the Red Rocks thing. You did the K-Love. You did a kids' music school. Quaver, is that?
Quaver music, yep.
Quaver music.
Which today 10 million kids are using in classrooms. That's pretty cool.
Wow.
So all of those have prepared you for what you're doing today, but at some point, you spend a day with Ronald Reagan. That's got to be. I mean, I spent a day looking at a picture of Ronald Reagan. That's the difference. What was the one that you went home and said to your wife, okay, I think this is going to be the game changer. Was there one significant thing that you along the way said this changes everything going forward?
This will lay it out very clearly for you. When I was really young, my mother used to tell me all the time, Steve, you'll be dead by the time you're 30. And it was a compliment. She used to say that all the time because I consumed life at such a rapid pace. And it was always robust. And I celebrated life so fully, from things I did at church to young life to everything. She loved the way I consumed life, is how she talked about it. And my parents died really young, 60 and 62. Wow. So I was 29 when they passed. I get to 30, I'm like, well, I'm still alive.
Yeah.
So then I just kept living. Then I got to 60. I'd lived 2 lifetimes by my mom's standard. And so now I'm just in gravy time. It's all extra. I'm just all overtime.
Wow.
I have often in my life said, Lord, how did I get here?
Yeah.
I don't belong here. I am so far over my head. When you meet Ronald Reagan and spend a couple hours with him, when you fill in the blank, so many things, and you've had these moments too, I know. I had a summer job at 16 to 17 working offshore on an oil rig, which a lot of Louisiana boys do. I grew up in New Orleans. It's dangerous and dirty, and it pays a lot of money, and it's just horrible work, and it's terrifying. I didn't want to do that again. When I was 18, I got a job on a cruise ship out of Miami as a DJ.
Oh,
when you compare those two,
wow.
They both paid a lot of money. They both were at sea, and they both were all you can eat. But one was a whole lot nicer than the other, I'll tell you. And I thought, Lord, I don't deserve this. I don't know where this came from.
That's great.
But those moments, and then producing a show in the White House where George Bush W. and his wife Laura were the host. And they asked us to produce a show to help restore hope in the country after 9/11. Yeah. And so to be in that amazing edifice for 3 full days and learn the history, to be standing on I'll tell you a quick story, and it don't have to be quick because I've heard this podcast is so beautiful because you don't have to race through it. It's not like a news clip.
No.
The first thing you do is I go in as the producer, ahead of our crew and all that, and you meet different staff, and so I meet this, and he's a kid. This guy's like 22. He said, hello, Mr. Gilreath, I'm so-and-so, and I'm the assistant vice under chief of staff. He had so many disclaimers before he got to this chief of staff department. I just want to go over the protocol with you. We want you to know, first of all, we're in the East Room of the White House. You're standing on this carpet. It was hand-woven by Betsy Ross and some of her friends. Therefore, your crew has to wear footies, and they can't have any greasy cables and all that. This painting of George Washington is the Lansdowne painting. It's the most valuable thing our government owns. It was the very first act of Congress. Therefore, you can't have a camera anywhere near that could possibly fall into it. When the president comes out, you never make any sudden moves. You don't speak to him until you're spoken to. You don't offer to shake his hand and you make sure your cell phone's. I'm like, okay, that's fine. 30 minutes later, this woman comes out. She's very put together, very nicely dressed. She's about 28. And she says, hello, Mr. Gilreath. I'm so-and-so, and I'm the undersecretary, chief of staff. She had one less title than this kid did, one less disclaimer, but she was his boss. I'm so glad you're here to produce this event. I just want to go through the protocol for meeting the president. You know, this carpet was hand woven by Betsy Ross, and you know, when you meet the president, you never offer to. You don't speak unless you're spoken to. You don't offer your hand to shake unless he's. She went through the same exact thing he did. That happened 5 times, 5 layers going up each time, and it ratcheted up in tension each time. So by the time the president actually came out, I was scared to death. I didn't want to touch anything, and the president, this George W. Bush, who's just, you know, a really nice guy, he walked over, and the chief of staff said, Mr. President, this is Steve Gilreath. He's producing the event. And Mr. President George Bush leaned over, he slaps me on the back, and he said, "Hey, Hoss, how you doing?" So,
and you knew you were home
and I knew
free.
it was all so much protocol.
All that protocol was
all
for
that
somebody
protocol
else.
was those people making themselves feel important.
That's
So
exactly
I met a president one time. My first weekend with the Spear family, we played for President Carter. And it was at Tuscumbia, Alabama, and he was running for re-election. Nobody told me the protocol. So we're on the
Wow, this is
platform,
not
on the
surprising.
stage, and he's coming in, and I'm over here, and I'm a kid from Jackson, Michigan. I'm going to meet the president. He's shaking hands on the other side. So right before he got to where I was, I jumped in front of him. You don't do that more than once.
yeah. Somebody learned a lesson, didn't they?
But you have, you know, again, all the things you look back and you go, this may be the pinnacle. I'm betting it's not. But what a great journey that led you to be the one. And we'll, like I said, we'll get into that a little bit. There's some more stories that I got to ask you about, because I've seen your name so many places, and I did not meet you until
3 o'clock?
A couple weeks ago.
That's
Yeah.
right. That's right.
And-
Known Dusty for a while.
Yep,
And
yep.
we have become fast friends. I got to tell you, thanks to Jamie Vaughn.
Yes.
Got us to be friends.
I think Dave is really funny, but Dave, I have to tell you, I think this guy is even funnier than you.
Well, and I've always thought he's a good judge of talent. I
He
got to
is
tell you.
quick-witted. Dave is really. Dave will usually get me on
I
these
got to
things.
know the story about the county fair.
Well, can I launch into
Yes.
that? First of all, I agree with you.
No, you are. See?
Now I hear you're a good judge of
Yeah,
talent.
Dave does.
So-
He gets me all the time, but you're really quick, and I have to think about the county fair. Just
All right,
thinking
so
about it.
I have been fortunate to do a lot of things in my life. I don't really pay attention to awards and the applause of others, because the things in my brain are just different, and the way I see the world. So, but in our family, because I have met presidents and things like that, I've always had a joke that someday I'm going to win a blue ribbon at the Williamson County Fair, and that because county fairs and meeting the president at the White House, those are on a different plane, but that's just something I always wanted to do, and so my daughter Alex finally just got sick of it. This one year, she said, "Dad, you're entering this year." Well, we're always busy around the time of the entries. They come in at an awkward time in the middle of summer and all that. So she pulls out right after July 4th. "I'm entering you. What's it going to be? What's the category?" So we go through the categories. They have a new category called tricked out cowboy hats. And they have a couple of examples, and it's straw hats, and they show feathers and flowers on them. And I'm like, "Oh no, I'm not having that. I can win this category." So I go, and by the way, these are bachelorettes.
I figured that on a Friday, Halloween, or whatever this is.
That's right.
Yeah.
And it's going by. So, so I said, I'm going to make a special cowboy hat. I built a cowboy hat out of steel, and I weld, and I built all kinds of crafts.
Oh my gosh!
And I called it Tricked Out for the Weekend, and I put a fishing pole over here, and a remote control back here, and a deck of playing cards up here, and I put a rim of bullet holders here, but I put Slim Jims in there, so you had little snacks all around there.
Okay.
And I put a little. We have a picture over there. Oh, there you go. And sure enough, I won a blue ribbon for it, and I've never been more proud.
That's awesome.
It's the most obnoxious thing, but it was really, really fun for me to. It weighs about 30 pounds, and I wore it going in the fair. And,
we need to get a picture of that and one of your double awards, and I don't have any awards.
You know, we're working on that too.
I don't want to know what that is.
And just the guy that would design a hat like that, probably could build a wall like what we're sitting in front of.
Absolutely.
We'll tell that story a little bit later.
It's a logical escalation.
Yeah.
That's it.
It's logical only in your brain, and so. But again, so you were talking about the years that you won did the Doves, and it dawned on me that almost every year that you did it, I lost. And I didn't start winning until you quit doing the show.
Cause and effect.
Cause and
you
effect.
Decide.
Yes,
So
you decide.
yes, I just want you to know I'm aware of that. We don't need to
put your mind at ease. I've produced a couple thousand music videos.
Yeah.
Most of them live performance only.
Yep.
But one of them was nominated. One time out of everything I've done was nominated for a Dove Award.
Which one?
Michael W. Smith, live, A New Hallelujah, was shot down at Lakewood Church. It was a big, beautiful,
Did you win?
DVD. Don't get ahead of the story.
I'm
going to teach you about storytelling. Life is about pacing.
I love it.
Okay, Don, you gotta pay attention to this.
This started out as my story.
Just remember it's Don and Danny.
Don and Danny. Don and Danny.
Don and Danny.
We have your pictures up now. So, all right. So, I thought the irony of me winning an award at a Dove Award show that I'm producing, if I went long in my acceptance speech, because that was the bane of my existence as a producer, was people stretch out the show. Well, it turns out that the Oak Ridge Boys were nominated in that same category, and they won. And I laughed, and I also said, "Well, these awards are so political."
They are, absolutely. They are, right up until you win.
Yeah.
Okay,
and then
you
all of a sudden,
say that.
I lost.
That was actually a quote from Aaron Wilburn one year in his acceptance speech.
Which is really funny.
He said these things really seem political right up till you win.
And then which is great.
Awesome. I love that.
That is great. That's funny.
So when you first year,
how many have you won?
Not near enough. I'm kidding. I've been very blessed.
Do you know how many you've won? I think I asked you this and you said you didn't.
I think when you go over like 5, what is it, 10, then you lose count? Is it?
There was one year, I've never let that take over my mind like because I can't.
I would. Let me just tell you, that's probably why I haven't won.
One year, my parents wanted to come to the Doves, and it was at the Opera House, and we had nominee seats right down the front, and our song was up called "Crucified with Christ," and it was getting a lot of airplay that year, and I told Mom and Dad, "Don't come if you expect me to win, because it probably won't." They said, "No, we just want to be there." So we're down on the floor. We watched them walk in the balcony. They sit down. And the first award they gave that night was for Song of the Year, and it was Jesus Freak, and they got back up. And my heart, it was the only time I just thought, oh gosh, I really wish I could have won for them. But you know what, very, very blessed, very grateful. But I'm analytical, watching the moments, and I've seen shows that were just, better than others. And the reason I have known your name is because the things that I have noticed where I go and look through the years, you've been the common denominator. So that's a guy that gets moments, you get transitions.
Well, one little sidebar on what you were just saying. The problem with the Dove Awards is there's a lot of great songwriters involved. If you're in it, the chances are you're not going to win because there's so many great artists involved.
So true.
And God is speaking through them. You should take my tip and say, you know what, I want to go win a blue ribbon. I'm going to go to a category where there's nobody but a few idiots involved, and I can be an idiot, and I'm going to win one. Just a little pro tip.
That's pretty funny.
If that's an itch you want to scratch, I can help you with it.
You just watch at the next fair rodeo here in Nashville. I'm going to win something. I'm going to win an award.
I bet my hat could whoop your hat. I'll just say that right
now. Here we go. I see a challenge coming.
My son-in-law is kind of a tech guy, and for Christmas last year, he found a way to make Dove Awards on his 3D printer. So he gave everybody in the family my wife got most retired person of the year, and we just had a lot of fun with it.
That's hilarious.
Which is fun.
But you've seen your share of moments, and we're out front. We don't see the stress. You're running how many cameras normally?
Well, if I do love to create those moments, and there are things that I'm just wired for that will drive most people nuts. I love live directing more than anything else.
Yeah.
More than anything else. And most people who walk into that environment, you just don't normally see this environment inside a remote truck.
Right.
I was fortunate to direct Lauren Daigle's World Tour video, or out at Red Rocks, 41 different artists for shows that ended up in theaters around the country.
Which was incredible.
And thank you. And
I mean,
man, I
incredible.
love working with those.
Yeah.
It's Mercy Me and We the Kingdom and Zach Williams, all those guys.
Yeah.
But shows like Lauren Daigle, 16 cameras, and that is a wall of cameras. And one of these was a live show, a preview of one of her new albums. 16 cameras live, and there's an assistant director talking over here, a technical director that I'm talking to here that's talking back. I'm looking at 16 things plus a program cut, talking to every camera guy. Some of them are coming back to me, and you're listening to the music because you want to cut to a beat, is what great directors in Nashville do that nowhere else does. And I love that so much. And I see all that and can find the beat and see who's working towards something, and I can make a story out of it, which draws the music out of it. And oh my gosh, in all those trucks, there's a few seats behind that we always have, people from label or somebody come sit in, and they just sit there and go, oh my gosh. It is literally overwhelming.
But that's got to be a jazz energy that you feel when it works.
Yes, it is absolutely it. And if you get off beat, sometimes you get behind the rhythm of a song. It's hard to catch back up. I just love it, and that's been a gift that was given to me by God, and I just have always pursued it and loved it.
It's incredible.
So let's talk about where we're sitting. I told you when we met that the weekend I moved to town, they were doing a fundraiser for a Gospel Music Hall of Fame way back in the 70s. By my count, do I remember that there have been 4 times that we've tried to do this?
I think that's right. Yep.
Wow.
And the thing that everybody that I have talked to that's been through here where we're sitting is the one comment. They all have their favorite spot, but the one thing that everybody talks about is, gosh, it surprised me how well done it was. Those of us who've been around and watching the attempts and even the money issue, would have been a lot cheaper back in the day, but it wasn't right.
No.
And in fact, I thought, you're an LSU guy, right?
Yes, I am. Thank you for noticing.
Did you? So you probably know that they lost their football coach last week.
I did.
Do you know how much they were going to pay him not to work?
I'd love to be fired for half that much.
If we had gotten a third of what he's gotten for not working the rest of the season, you could have paid cash for everything we're sitting, right?
I know.
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, it is crazy.
It's
That's
a
how
little
we
bit out of
value
whack.
things in this world. Yep.
Yeah.
So when you heard that they were going to really do this, did you have a sense you were going to get the call, or what was that like?
No, I was at K-Love, running K-Love On Demand, which I had been asked to come to 3 years prior to create that division by Bill Reeves, and loved doing that. And we had built a great network. K-Love had been through some transitions, and I was getting older, so I was already thinking about retirement. So I didn't really know that they had started this effort. I wasn't keeping up with what was going on at GMA that closely at that time. So they were well into raising $15 million to build this place. And then somebody sent me a post about looking for an executive director, and we actually still don't know who it was that sent it to me. I thought it was from Jackie Patillo, president, and it wasn't. I called her, and she said, I'm glad you decided to call. And I'm like, well, I thought you sent it to me. She said, I didn't send that to you. So it's a really interesting thing. We have a friend in common, and I think that's where it came from. But but the timing was perfect on it, and it just seemed instantly like, once I heard about it, I'm like, absolutely, this is everything I know. Because of the Dove Awards, it's everything I love.
Yeah.
They need the experience of someone who speaks this language, understands all of the interest involved. I mean, these are the livelihoods of people and egos that are involved, and passions, and it's all that. It's just really hard to manage all that. You have to be delicate and fair, let me ask you this. So I get involved. I sit down, take a deep breath, and I say, where do you start? You build a museum.
Yeah.
You start from, we had a hole in the ground here, and they had a plan architecturally of a little bit of a flow, but there was no artist story told at all. And so that was up to me to say, okay, what are we going to do about what music we're going to represent, how are we going to represent people? There are lots of ways you could go.
Yeah.
And the GMA, of course, wanted to represent gospel, Southern gospel, CCM, all of that, and that's a noble calling.
Yes.
So it's a big calling because those worlds don't often intersect.
So true.
But then how do you decide if you don't have a space for 1,000 artists who should all be in here?
Yeah.
How do you winnow that down? How do you prioritize? Well, it's easy. You just do it by album sales. Well, wait a minute. Some of these artists have been dead and gone for 40 years, 50 years.
Yeah.
Wait, what are albums? Wait, are they CDs? Wait, there's no albums today or CDs. They're digital somethings. What's the equivalent today from RIAA of a digital stream of anything to what used to be an album?
Yeah.
We can't use that. Well, you know what? Of course we want to use radio because radio matters more than anything. Well, radio used to matter more than anything. Well, now there's a streaming thing. And so how do you apples to apples that? You can't. Those are all different. Of course, it's ticket sales. That matters more than anything.
Sure.
They don't. Ticket sales back then, revenue from those is radically different from ticket sales today.
That's right.
So, and they're all valid.
Yes.
So
Everything.
all album sales, all of that, and there's a award, Dove Awards. Well, that's a good moniker. We're built around the Dove Awards. So all of those matter. All of those, or they don't matter. They're appropriate to use in the calculation, but they're not everything.
Right.
There are also people who intersected with our world that should be noted here, like Dolly Parton, who won 2 Dove Awards, was on the show twice, is a massive international figure, but she doesn't live in our space full time.
Right.
But she supports a lot.
But she supports it, absolutely.
Yes.
Well, that's someone we should pay attention to.
Exactly right.
So there has to be wild cards. There has to be a matrix that factors in all that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
plus people I just like.
Yeah.
So there you go.
So if you, never mind, I won't say it.
The corollary to that, or the opposite of that is true too. So
I know we still have time to do, but I want people to come see this because when we walked in, it was emotional.
Sure.
Even though I'd talked to you and I talked to Jamie and I talked to Dana and helped a few things, but I tell you that day that we came and celebrated Reba's birthday, and I'd been here a couple of times in the beginning of, but that day when you walk in and you see it done, or there's still more stuff to do. But
well, let me tell you about Reba Rambo.
It was emotional for me, and you too, Dave. I mean,
Very
you
much.
cried right over there.
I was tears before I hit the coffee bar.
Because we've spent so much time in the different areas of, I mean, Dave is in one part of it, me, as I walk through and you see, I mean, I couldn't help but see Michelle Pillar's Vinyl. I'd help sell that record. Kathy Tricoli. I mean, so many, I was taking pictures left and right and sending it to artists saying, you're here.
Who let Kathy Tricoli in? How did she get in here? I'm just kidding. I know she's here. Let me tell you, when you guys came to visit, Reba Rambo looked like royalty. Oh my goodness, 74 years old and dressed the part of the queen. Not a crown though, but her hat. And she was gorgeous and just regal in her approach, and so affected by everything she saw, and seeing pictures of her mom, and I did see all from the outside, seeing her picture on the marquee outside. She started crying. That was number one. She cried 10 times through this.
One of the things I told Dave and Cindy, we were talking about when she went. I know. Look at me. I'm already tearing up. When she walked back, and
you need a hug right now.
I probably do. When she either saw her mom's dress and guitar, she looked up and she said, "Hi, Mom." Yep. And I'm telling you what,
wow,
oh my gosh,
that just, because she loves this industry, and she was a trailblazer herself. Even though so much of there were so many things about the Rambos, they're in the Hall of Fame, her mom, but she helped trailblaze for contemporary Christian music coming from the Southern gospel world. Cindy loved her because she she had one of the first contemporary records that won a Dove Award for one of the very first contemporary projects. They didn't know what to do with it, so they put it in the contemporary category. So I think what you've done is just
and
absolutely
when
incredible.
she saw that, when she told the story of her guitar, that her mom's brother went and made that guitar by hand for her when he was in the Navy. Oh my gosh, that's that's epic. That's why there needs to be a museum so that item is preserved and you can see this handmade guitar in a case and you can hear that story, because those stories are they'll vanish. So she just happened to say that story while she was standing there. I had never heard that before, never read it, and we've read an awful lot about her.
Yeah, you did.
It's amazing. So
you had not heard that story.
I'd not heard that story.
And then I've heard you say, I think, that you had not heard the Fisk story.
Okay.
That's worth telling.
When we were trying to decide where do we start, because we could go back to David in the Bible, and then somebody corrected me and said, well, you could go back to Jubal, which is before David in the Bible, and that's correct. And I should read the Bible. It sounds really, really good.
But don't ask Dusty.
That is a joke. Don't
listen. You've already said several things that I don't know about. No,
Dusty's only connection to it was he helped sell it back at
That's
work.
exactly right. I did notice you had several back there, so I just want to tell you that.
That's right. And then Mike Nolan, who's our co-creator here, and he's
Great man.
He's a wonderful writer. Wrote the Dove Awards for 25 years, for my 10 years and others. He's the one who really put together the story in the museum. I helped on artifacts, and I kind of kept him between guardrails and said, we could build this, we can do this. He was in charge of story and decided our great starting point would be with Fisk Jubilee singers who performed in England in front of Queen Victoria, 1850, and to which she replied, wow. I don't think she said wow. It was probably more queenly than that, but that's my take on it. She said, surely you must be from a very musical city. And that's how Nashville got the name Music City. And I always thought it was a country thing.
Same here.
I never knew that until I started researching for this museum.
Wow.
And so I'm learning all sorts of things.
So did you have a lot of those moments that you went, that was always out there, but I didn't know the story behind this piece. And as those pieces came in, did you have a lot of those aha moments?
I did, and I will admit this, I still am. There are so many items in the museum. We're still getting new things all the time. And as we move things around in cases, we have a lot of multi-artist, multi-piece items, so some books and things like that. When we'll flip a page on something, I'll be like, oh, I didn't know that. And one of the more fascinating things to me, I love civil rights. When we were yesterday I was in Atlanta at the Civil Rights Trail Designation Conference. So we've applied to be part of the Civil Rights Trail, which will help tell the Civil Rights Trail story through locations like ours.
Which I love that.
It's an amazing process that our government is behind. Mark Ezell, Director of Tourism, is a big proponent of that. And we got to be with sites like Lorraine Motel Museum and the Civil Rights Museum in Montgomery, all these from all over the Southeast. It's really honoring to be there. And to hear all the things that they talked about and then look at what we have in the museum here to realize we have the soundtrack of that whole movement.
Goodness sakes.
You're right.
And what I learned is I look at how we've put it together. When I see, everybody loves Aretha Franklin, and she was a strong voice in that. But when you find out that Aretha Franklin, her family, her father and all that were friends with Albertina Walker, they were connected, they grew up, and they learned from so-and-so and so-and-so, and it went on. And so all these major figures that a lot of us would know the names from the past didn't realize they met in the same house every day, and that's how Aretha really learned to sing. And it's also where they formed their civil rights heart and action. And so that was a force that came out of this one little neighborhood. It's like, so James Cleveland started that with this. It's unbelievable to see all that, and I've learned an awful lot about that. So thank you, Albertina. Thank you, James Cleveland. Thank you for all those coming together.
Well, and then you think Mahalia Jackson. You just go through the whole line of it, which is just incredible.
Mahalia Jackson, I didn't know until this is literally last Thursday. I read something where I've always thought of her as this big singer. I thought of her as a counterpart of Sarah Vaughan and others who I love, Etta James. I didn't realize that she only sang gospel music.
Yep.
I didn't realize that she just did not want to sing anything else.
Isn't that crazy?
Yes.
Wow.
So to have as much notoriety as she did.
Exactly right. Yeah.
Rosetta Tharpe. Have you ever heard of Rosetta Tharpe?
No.
Oh.
Hardly anybody has, but you
I,
have.
I just knew she's a guitar.
Dusty sold her records.
Yeah.
No, I didn't. But
in the 40s.
I might want to see if there's one over there. I might buy it today. No.
Well, she's one of the greatest stories that I think we're trying to tell. To get ready for this museum, I went to 30 museums around the country.
Yeah, which is
I had a great series of trips, and people were very kind. I got to spend several hours up at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame with their CEO, and Greg greeted me up there like a friend and he spent way too much time with me. And he had a Sister Rosetta Tharpe poster on his desk, and I said, "Oh, you know Sister Rosetta?" And I think he was pulling out any gospel thing he had to greet me. Yeah. He said, "Yes, we are." Well, Sister Rosetta back in the 40s and 50s was a black woman who toured on her own. She was her own promoter and manager, and she filled up arenas, and she played electric guitar. None of that was conventional.
Yeah.
All of it was against stereotypes.
Yeah.
And she preached. She played gospel music as well as rock and roll. She was an incredible influence on massive crowds, and she is... I'm sorry to tell the Blackwood brothers and others, she's probably the first person that invented the tour bus out of necessity, because a black woman was not allowed to stay in a hotel by herself.
Wow.
So she had a little old bus, and they carved took out some seats and threw a bed in there because she could not stay anywhere else.
Oh my gosh.
And her story is fascinating, and I'm sure she could take any of us in a fair fight. You for sure. But I mean, even me. So
I tell you what I love about all of that
hurts. No, I'm just
is every piece you hear of a story that you think, well, that's not our story, you realize it is.
It is.
Yeah.
And the tent, it would bring the tent is bigger than the building here.
Yeah.
So at some point, you had to have people calling you saying, hey. And where this hit for me was at the Dove Awards a few weeks ago. Jamie Vaughn sees me walking past, and she stops and says, "Will you talk to me for a minute on camera?" And she says, "Well, I'll say hello to Jamie anytime." But I wasn't ready for her question. She said, "So if you could donate one thing to the museum, what would it be?"
Wow.
And it caught me so off guard. And I left there that night, and I began to think more about that and think, you know what? Just the fact that I've gotten to watch all these years and a bit of a historian from that aspect. But then I began to think about what your job was. You had to have people offering to give you stuff that you didn't want. How do you handle that?
Yeah, like when somebody offered a kidney, we just didn't have a...
You might before the day's over.
I probably might, yeah. I'm anxious to know your answer on that, too. When you get caught off guard, you can have a kidney. That's it. Yeah. Interesting that I talked to a lot of different artists and artist spouses.
Yeah.
And the spouses often said, please come over, come to our storage area, take it all. Take it all, clean it all out.
Really
because
true.
we have 40 years of memories and I don't want any of it now. I heard from some other artists an interesting phenomena, and I'm familiar with this now, is that people said, I won't give you names, but they said, these are all precious to me. And they might have 30 gold records and a lot of Dove Awards and some other accolades, and I said, our kids don't want this.
Yes.
Yeah, I
totally.
I think about that. I have a huge vinyl collection. I love my kids. I know they don't. They're not interested in it.
Mm-hmm.
That's all Christian.
And you keep buying records here.
I sure do.
That's it.
That was my life.
Kids said,
but that is true.
So do you take everything?
So I have said to people, I'm not here to clean out your storage area. Yeah. What I really would love to have would be the three things that fans ask about every time they see you.
Interesting.
We have helped some other people. Eddie DeGarmo, oh my gosh, he had a precious collection.
Yeah.
And Susan was there to encourage us to, no, let me help you. There's more back here. I left with my pickup truck full, including a life-size cutout of Eddie sitting in the seat next to me, so it looked like he was going out with me that afternoon.
So funny.
It was just tooling through Franklin. There we go.
So funny.
We've had a lot of those, and we enjoy that. We're building an archive separate for the museum, which will, because we hope to expand space-wise. One day we'll see how that goes. And as we've opened, and as people come to the museum, we're now getting more and more stuff come to us. So actually the pace has picked up, even though the museum is open and relatively full right now.
So when there's got to be a sense of, okay, somebody like me walks through, and I'm measuring the effectiveness of the museum by the era that I lived in. It's almost like somebody going to church and saying, well, I only want this kind of music because, and yet you have found a way to not only do that, but you've got some of the museums that you've gone to.
Yeah.
You can tell when you walk in the front door when they were built.
Yeah.
And
Or last cleaned even.
Yeah,
So.
Yes.
that's true.
Mike Nolan had this epiphany early on. We didn't want to make the museum sectioned off by genre, for instance, because we didn't want all the Southern Gospel people to run in, see the Southern Gospel section, and then run out.
Right.
And I thought that was genius. And
I totally agree.
We've spread out. Well, you've seen the Southern Gospel. The museum has 24 feet that's chronological, and that's it.
Yeah.
Then after that, it's by structure. So there's duos, trios, quartets,
Which is
family
absolutely
bands.
incredible.
It's really fun. You see all the genres mixed.
Absolutely.
Then there's some genre with rock bands,
Yep.
a Southern Gospel section, contemporary gospel, traditional gospel. But then it's 6-string songcrafters and keyboards, and it changes every 10 feet. We say, so if you get bored, just walk 10 more feet.
That's exactly right.
And then you'll get into a section about fan reactions to artist songs, and you can leave a tribute to an artist. You can actually make a message that we'll deliver to an artist. There's a prayer wall. There's all sorts of different things here instead of just seeing album covers or something like that. So.
I love how it all is mixed up. It's just such a simple display, but it's the one where the open Bible, it's sitting on CDs, cassettes. I want to say there might be an iPod, one of the original one. I mean, there's all kind. There's an 8-track, and it talks about the message, maybe all different. The way the message, the media might be different, but it's all the same message. And man, that moved me. I think Cindy was standing there with me, and I just,
One of the things that I keep finding is everybody I've talked to in the past few weeks since I was here, I'm like, hey, have you guys?
Yeah.
And everybody that I talk to says, man, my favorite part was, and I go, I didn't see that.
Yeah, you're exactly right.
And so we bought a family pass today. We're going to bring our kids back and walk them through the story.
We're going to do that at Christmas time,
as
all
we
of us
remember.
together.
And we're coming with Dusty's family, and there are things that other people have talked about that I want to see it. And I said on Reba's podcast that we did, we interviewed her the day after she was here. But I said I hope that people come back and not only go to the people's names that they know, but spend time with the names they didn't know, because the story is all interwoven.
Well, what I loved when I love the thing where it shows all the past that are in the Gospel Music Hall of Fame, and I've been a member of the GMA since 1981.
Wow!
I have a T-shirt even. I was quite well. Anyway, but what I loved when I was looking at it, I may have been with you or standing there with Reba. All of a sudden, I looked down and I saw the name. The pastor, Cathedral of Tomorrow. Oh my gosh,
Rex Humbard.
Rex Humbard.
I'm here for you.
And I thought you are.
Yes.
Thank you. I thought, and all of a sudden, I remembered he had some of the most elaborate TV shows that focused on Christian music when I was a teenager, and I thought he's a member of the Gospel Music Hall of Fame. And that just, when you start looking at that list of people, that their impact was just significant.
And the thing about a story is it's more relevant the more you tell it.
You're exactly right. Yeah.
So I told you when I was here, I found the very first label cut that I had as a 17-year-old.
That's unbelievable.
And that's where I saw you cry.
So there's another part to the story. it was a cathedral quartet record called Sunshine and Roses, and that was a huge deal for a young kid to get a cut on a group like that. So Tuesday night of this week, they did a benefit concert for something called The Veranda. And so we were part of that. And I'm out there and I'm talking to a lady, and it hit me. The lady I was talking to was named Tony Clay. Her husband was Vic Clay, who produced that record.
Oh, my goodness.
And I pulled that picture out of me holding that record, and she told me the story behind the record that I wouldn't have known.
See,
that's the beauty of what you
Right.
get to do, what we're trying to do with this podcast. I want our kids to know how we got here.
Absolutely.
And I want the younger artists and the older artists to see how it all plays a part of each other. That's why I think it's just incredible.
I have loved watching artists from today go through to that vinyl collection. I don't know if you know how those records got here.
I love this story.
It's phenomenal. From 1969 to 1985, when CDs came out, if you wanted to submit a song for a nomination for a Dove Award, you had to submit a vinyl record. So all of those records have been in the basement of the GMA, tens of thousands of them.
And they're in
for
perfect
50,
condition.
60 years. They've been played one time, one song, one time. They're in perfect condition.
They are.
And so we talked to lawyers and all that, and they said, of course you can sell them. So they're all here for sale. They're in pristine collection, and they are the best music by definition, because they're all were submitted for awards for the GMA.
So are those cataloged?
They are, and it's every version you could think of. So some of them are selects that were sent. I don't know all the terminology there, but most of them are catalog, and but there's some that are so unusual. Like I didn't know Terry Bradshaw did 3 albums that were that were submitted. I don't think ever nominated.
One of them was good.
Okay, well, that's
if
good
Terry
average.
Bradshaw's family, he's just
I can
kidding.
so edit that out.
He's kidding. It wasn't good. Is that what you mean?
I did. No. No, that when you do look at those records, like I was looking through them and I thought, I mean, there was some Hovey Lister in the Statesman that I had not seen in years anywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, I
think
called
people
several artists and said, you need to go down there because I know you collect records.
Well, and literally, we have tens of thousands of them. So I think people are getting tuned in on whatever day we restock.
I love that.
Because we're not putting like the best ones out first. It's just whatever's next.
Yeah.
And it's
very cool.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
So
as I've known you but a couple of weeks, but
you seem bitter.
I understand, I think, your thought process a little bit just from the years of your work.
Yeah.
But when you walk around, do you say, okay, you said earlier this may be my last big project. I'm not buying that, but do you walk around and say, okay, man, now what we need to do next? I mean,
boy, I'm proud of me. That's what I think the whole time. No, I don't. I think for a high creative like I am, a couple of thoughts I have on what you just said. But when I used to produce the Dove Awards, people would often come up and say, best show ever, that's amazing, and all that. And all I could think about was the 10 things I could have done better.
Yeah.
yes.
And my whole life, I have driven myself to a higher plateau because that's how I think. And it's not unfair. I don't punish myself and all that. It's just that's how I think. Whenever I go into a project, I walk out instantly evaluating, man, we should have done this, should have done this. And so it doesn't mean I can't enjoy the moment. It's just that I see things at what I intend, where I saw them. My wife calls it my Pinterest in here, my own little.
I love that.
I just live in my own space, and so I rarely settle into something and say, boy, that's the best it could be. Now I'm done. When I say that it's the last thing I'll do, last big project, I'm an old guy. I want to retire, but but I don't want to go do nothing. I want to go do some different things. I've written a novel before, and it did pretty well. I want to go write. I'm working on, but I want to finish my next novel, and I have a jewelry line. I do all sorts of things, and I want to spend more time doing that.
So the novel, was it a lady's name or something? What was the name of the?
It was called Sell Montana. So unless you know a lady named Sell Montana, no.
Yeah. I
Did you know?
I pulled that from nowhere, did you? Yeah.
I've not read it, but probably won't.
Yeah.
I don't have the attention span to get through a novel, but
Gotcha. It's you may not make it through this interview. I don't know. I wrote
the
it.
two of you would do. I knew this
my
was
fear
going to
is
happen.
we're going to
There's not
post
a
this
doubt in my
podcast,
mind.
and he's going to send me a 10-point memo of
this.
should have done this,
Should've done
should have
this.
gone this camera shot.
And I'll
That's
probably
it.
agree with him.
Well, I rarely rate others. It's more about me. I wrote a novel. I'm a big fan of economics. I'm a big fan of government in that, even though that you mentioned I met Ronald Reagan, I mentioned I met George Bush. I think our government spends too much money.
Yeah.
Whatever. It's not.
Yeah.
That is apolitical. That's
Yeah.
whatever party's in charge.
Yeah.
And so I wrote a book to exemplify that fact with an absurd notion that we, written in the future, 10 years out, that we get into so much debt that we have to do something radical. And so I posited that a strong, neutral president comes into office and decides the number one thing we have to do, because we had a crushing national debt, was to get us out of debt. And he had to take a radical step, and all his advisors come in, and we're in so much debt. The one thing they can do is they decide to sell the state of Montana. And that launches a set of subplots and a secession movement, all these funny things. And the funny thing is, I wrote it the day the iPad was announced was when I started writing. And I was writing 10 years in the future. So if you do all that math, it's hard to think about it. But when I released the book 5 years ago now, I thought, well, I have to come up with a number. Okay, we're going to be 40 billion or 40 trillion in debt. And I thought, that's ludicrous. Well, then nobody would ever buy that. So I rolled it back to 30 trillion that we would be in debt by the end of the 20s. Well, here we are in 25, and we actually now are in the 37 trillion in debt.
Wow.
The whole book, by the way, is based on truth and economics and Supreme Court rulings and all that. I did my homework. And it is staggering and terrifying. If you read Sell Montana, you'd go, well, my goodness. So people have enjoyed it, and I've enjoyed it. But the other books I'm writing are not about those same topics. They're all wild, like me in the sculpture. They're all over the place. So
That's so
do you sleep well at night? Is it,
I don't.
that mind is always going.
It's always going.
Yeah.
So
and that's we're all the beneficiary of that as well.
Right.
well,
So I
thank you for
gotta
that.
I gotta ask you.
You seem really wound up right now. I got to tell you,
It makes your mind. Yeah.
Well, I'm sitting there going, all the things that he does that he's good at,
Yeah.
and I do one thing. I write songs, and then I find out that this guy's a songwriter as well, and I'm just.
That's
So have you
fun.
how many cuts have you had? I know you
okay, now
signed
see,
the
you asked the
deal.
wrong
See,
question.
there's the wrong question.
Yeah, you cut to the bummer at the end. And,
Well, it's the art of storytelling. Is a question in asking is you're going to step
that
on
was
my
the art of
career
story
at some point.
squelching, is what you just did. I have a great friend named Taylor Dunn, who's a monster songwriter. Wrote a lot of great songs with Randy Travis and others, and I won't use any other names past that because of what I'm getting ready to tell you. But we were in a little men's group, prayer group, for years, and like many songwriters, I hope you haven't experienced this, but he got a bad case of writer's block, and he used to write with Paul Overstreet and others. I mean, he was a high level performer, but he got to where he was having a struggle, and I said, "Hey Taylor, let's get together and write." I said, "We won't get anything done, but I promise I'll make it fun for you again, and maybe I can get you out of this funk." So we got together, and we had a great time, and we wrote a pretty good song. He called me the next day, and he said, "That song's pretty good. Let's get back together and finish it." We got back together and finished it. He called me the next day, and he said, "Hey, I went ahead and cut a demo on that song we did last night." And by the way, he was a writer for Starstruck and for Reba McEntire, and an artist was in that building that night and heard the song and put it on hold. And I said, "See, what are you guys complaining about this songwriting business being hard?" I said, we spent 3 days on it, and
Did
we
he cut it?
Okay, let me tell you what case here.
I gotta know.
You got to pump
That's
the
the
brakes.
songwriter.
I gotta
Dave,
You
know.
got to pump the brakes. So So we got the demo. So then, so his publisher called. He said, "You don't have a publisher, right?" And I said, "No." And so the publisher called and he said, "Okay, I hear you got a song moving, and you want to sign a 1-song deal." And I said, "Yeah, but I got to have some cash." He said, "Oh, we don't do a cash advance on a single song deal." And I said, "Yeah, but it's already on hold. It's certainly going to get on a record." He said, "Well, what are you thinking?" And I said, "Well, I want a check signed by Reba for $2.50."
Okay.
Great.
And so he laughed. He said, "All right, we'll do that." So I have a check signed by Reba with my songwriting
That's
contract
funny.
for $2.50. And the bad news is, in my life, I've almost had to cash that check several times. Because then we live in Nashville. The entertainment business does this.
You didn't answer my question yet.
So then, as soon as all that was done, then Clay Walker, who was the guy who had the song on hold, dropped it and didn't get cut. So there you go.
Did you have to pay your part of the demo cost?
No, I didn't pay.
That's how that
he
usually
covered
works.
me. Yeah,
That
was it.
is
Yeah.
awesome.
No, that was it. So,
This has been incredible today.
My gosh.
I got one more question, then
All right.
Dusty, whatever you got, and then and then I want you to
Yes.
explain the
Yes,
wall.
I do
but
too.
that's not my question. You can't work as many hours because you can't. Something like this, you can't do it as a job. It's a faith. You can't do this without being a believer. It's too big. And I don't know your story. Talk me through where faith intersects the labor of love and a project like this.
I think that everything I've done in my life, I'm all in on, and it's all driven by faith and passion.
Yeah.
And that's my marriage, which I just celebrated 40 years. And it's work I do with Young Life. I'm still 40 years later working with Inner City in Chicago. And still very involved in there on a weekly basis with a group to help change lives there. And I don't ever want to change that. This world will only get better if we work individually, reaching out to individuals. So we have a small nonprofit with 3 of us, and we reach into individual lives and make a difference. And building this museum and just putting all the hours in is just me manifesting the gifts that God has given me in toward a goal. And I have no idea why I've been given these gifts and this opportunity, and I don't dare do anything less than my best with all that I've been given. And that's all I know to do.
Here we go.
Wow.
Yeah.
You're like blind date to prom crying in here. Look at you guys. And I thank you for that. That's an honor to
You feel
do.
that passion
You
when you walk through
do,
it.
and we both. That's why we're doing this.
Absolutely.
I still get crazy passionate every day. I'm 67 years old, but I do. I get crazy passionate about this music.
You don't know how people exist who don't have that for whatever they
no.
do. It's not music. Whatever they do,
it's
how
not.
do they? What do you live for if you don't have that passion for whatever?
And I mean, it does. The music still moves me. I don't care if it's. I hate calling it Southern gospel, contemporary. I call it heart music. It touches that part of the heart that nothing else can, and that's why we love to tell the stories. But I want to say, because we have a lot of listeners, this museum, I want to see. I reached out to Jackie last week and told her a couple of weeks ago about the Reba thing and how much I want to come out and volunteer and bring tour groups here. People need to see this. And just experience what we experience.
Yes.
And what we've experienced for years about the music. But when they walk in, they see all the different worlds, how it all is mixed in, but it all matters.
I really think they should come, and they should help me figure out what this sculpture means. Because it's a mess.
Explain this to me.
So cool. And every time I've seen it maybe 4 or 5 times. Like today, I had never noticed the little devil word over there on the drum. So you see something new. It's just so cool.
50 guitar necks singing, I ain't got nobody.
I know. And the piano.
So I went to 30 museums, like I said, to get ready for this. And all of those museums had some major sculpture right up front when you walk in. It was a signature.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, we're going to have a sculpture, whatever it is. Well, I'm a maker. I build stuff.
Yeah.
I said, I'm going to build our
You
sculpture.
want a blue ribbon.
I'm a blue ribbon certified creator. It's going to take more than a steel hat, though. And I weld, I do concrete furniture, I do all these things. I've not worked with acrylic, but I've been wanting to, and I thought, this is my moment. I want to do something big scale. This weighs 1,000 pounds.
Yeah.
And it's about I think it's 20 gallons of acrylic, which is $100 a gallon. I mean, it's so the theme of it is reap as you sow. It means let's plant good music. Let's grow good music. And so you see a watering can at the top with guitar strings coming out of it, and it's growing a field of guitar necks. God. And there's a company here called MIRC. I don't know if you ever heard of them, but the beautiful company over in Laverne, and those guys were nice enough when I told them what I was doing. They take guitars that come off the manufacturing line from the top guitar lines in the world. If they have a little tiny ding or something like that in the paint job, then they can't be sold as new. So they take them and refurbish them, and then they sell them as refurbished to Guitar Center and all those places. And they do beautiful work, and they've got a row after row of luthiers there working on these things. They also take busted flat guitars that artists, you've seen artists roll over them with trailers and all that.
Yep.
So they will fix those guitars and bring them back from the dead. Well, they have a big pile of stuff they call guitarbage sitting there. And
that's fun.
So they gave me a big stack of 15 guitars that were just had long past being fixable. So I've got pieces of 15 guitars in here. And so to keep my theme going, I put my word out to a bunch of friends. I said, if you have any broken instruments, I'd love. In this business, people have a lot of broken instruments. I think it's part of their therapy. They have a lot just torn them apart. Sure. So I get a call from Kurt Heineke, who gave me, he was the music director for VeggieTales.
He sure was.
And he sent me this tuba that was the original tuba used in all the VeggieTales songs.
Oh my sakes.
Where's My Hairbrush? All those songs that was used on that.
I did sell those records. They helped pay my kids' school bill.
There you go. Yeah. That's real history there. So I turned them into sunflowers with Shure microphone screens coming out of all of them.
Absolutely amazing.
And then I've got a river here that has white keys coming down, black keys coming across, and they join, and that's a unity theme, obviously. And I needed an anchor, and I thought I need something with girth. I understand girth. And then I just thought, thank you for laughing, took a little longer there.
I see it now.
And I looked up pianos and organs online. On Facebook, there's like 50, any time in history you look now, 50 free piano. If you'll come get it, you can have it.
Wow.
And I found this beautiful pump organ for free down out in the country south of College Grove, and I went down and got it from a lovely little family. It came from their family out of a church, and so I got it. And
unbelievable.
It didn't work, so I cut all the guts out because it was super heavy. And I kind of fixed her up there and put
there's a snake coming out from it.
And so then, thank you for noticing there. So you see the drums over here, but then down on the bottom, the alternate theme is you can also grow bad music. And so I created an underworld with what do musicians hate? Dead cables and a snarl of them. So there's a snarl of cable that turned into a snake, and the fangs are 1/4-inch plugs. And then there's a bunch of broken guitar pieces in the underworld down there. And anyway, that's great. It's got a lot of life to it, and you'll see a sea of guitar picks up there. They're on springs.
And if they will come to the museum, they can actually see this in person.
And
right?
it's incredible.
Yeah.
So I got one last little funny story that I may edit out before it. And Dusty, you wouldn't know this. But the day Reba was here, I have this little thing that stabilizes my phone, and I've never hardly used it. But I was trying to use it for that day because I wanted footage of. And so I had filmed some great moments with her down there. You know what I'm going to tell, right?
I don't.
So we come up here, and I see you're talking to Reba, and I thought, I got to film that. And now I'm just. And you walked past me, and you reached over to my iPhone and you hit record.
Oh, yes.
That's funny.
I wasn't going to blow your cover. I wasn't going to blow your cover.
That's a guy that doesn't film ever. And I just looked at him And then in my mind, I'm thinking, I know I've been getting all this footage, but that one time that I put it up and held it,
and you did.
the director of all time and Christian
Only because I've been there,
That's
walks
funny.
past.
I have not heard that.
No,
That
you
is
probably
so
wouldn't
funny.
have. But
Yeah.
thank you so much for spending some time with us today.
Wow.
What a dream.
We are fans,
Just-
and we love getting to help tell your story.
And we want people to come down and see it.
Yes.
And you call us, and we'll bring you down here. I mean, I absolutely love this place. It has such heart, and man, this is
great.
exciting. Steve,
Thank you, brother.
I love how your heart came through with this, and
Thank you, Donnie.
yeah, it's very good. That's funny.
Dusty, I love you, man, and I
love
love
you.
hanging with you guys. Dave, thank you so much. I'm honored to be here.